Salt on her skin, lies in the slip. Marinas don't sleep. They rock themselves into a hum the city can't hear. When the dinner crowd loses interest in sunsets, and the last charter boat posts its photos, the docks switch languages. Day speaks in sunscreen and guest passes, in families drawing names in the condensation on plastic cups. Night speaks in halyards kissing masts, in bilge pumps with small opinions, in red and green LEDs winking like a miniature argument across the channel. Diesel cools with a soft tick. Lines tighten on their own as the tide remembers what it's for. If you've never stood under a dock light at 2 in the morning and felt the whole harbor breathe in your lungs, you don't know how a city can fold itself into water and wait. My name is Theo, night harbor master at Blue Lantern Marina. On my belt, a VHF that gossips in good faith, a ring of keys that understand doors better than people do, a gerber that knows the difference between tight and cruel. At my shoulder, the dock office window, salt dried into its corners like old grief. On my desk, the berth log, the fuel dock ledger, a bowl where bottle caps pretend to be treasure. I can tell from the song a halyard makes whether its owner ties like a scout or a liar. I can feel in a finger laid on a cleat whether the boat that belongs to it has been moved more than the tide would permit. I know by the breath a bilge pump takes if love has been happening in a cabin where love isn't rented. Mara, my wife, then curated evenings that made money flirt. She ran events up at the club, wine on the balcony, lanterns like promises, a string quartet that knew when to get out of the way. She wore a thin band of salt-stained leather around her left wrist, inside, where my mouth could find it if I had clearance. On Wednesdays, when our orbit permitted, she'd badge through the service gate and step onto the dock with a slide in her hips like she'd invented tide. She would sit on the edge of my desk, one heel hooked on the cutout where we keep the lost and found life jackets, and slip 2 fingers into my belt under the pretense of scissoring off a loose thread. I'd put my mouth in the notch below her collarbone, the place where a voice wakes, and breathe until her shoulders changed professions. We were careful. The office camera forgets nothing. The dock light keeps a diary. The first sign did not shout. At 01:08 the berth log alarmed a thing that shouldn't alarm. Slip C-17 registered fob engage, 3S, no ID. At 01:11 the security cam over the private gate blinked like an eye too close to a secret and then sharpened. At 01:14 the fuel dock inventory showed 2 champagne splits removed without a sale and replaced by 1 bottle of club soda like a confession. At 01:19, I found it. A candy-red ring of lipstick on the rim of a compostable cup set neatly on the rail behind the ice chest, peppermint, and a little medicinal in the night air. Mara tastes like fig and a violet liquor that doesn't apologize. Peppermint belongs to younger mouths or older lies. 2 nights later, the same minute put fingers in the back of my neck. Fob engage, 4S. The tide was wrong for docking unless a hand with money and ego was at the wheel. On the pier by C-17, a single sequin crouched in the grain, pretending it had always been part of the pattern. Sequins don't grow here. We are wool and weather and the clean stubbornness of rope. I am not a cop. I am a keeper of lines and a translator of wind. But I believe in traces. From the maintenance cabinet, I took the UV developer we keep for school tour when we want to show kids how handprints glow like guilty moons. That night, I kissed a crescent beneath the keypad of the private gate, dusted the underside of the varnished rail at C-17, where a steadying hand might go, and traced a whisper along the thermostat in the locker room that lives under the club, the one nobody admits exists. I tied a single hair of monofilament across the service door that leads to the back of the slips. Nothing to hurt, only a thin truth that would curl and die on the boards if disturbed. Then I looked at my reflection in the dark of the office window, the kind of mirror you use when you're deciding what not to do. And I smiled the way a man smiles when he already knows which drawer of himself he'll leave closed. Mara came later with a mouth like amber and a dress that was more implication than garment. She took my coffee, dock office coffee, all bitterness, no charm, and forgave it the way she forgave the parts of me that were welded to this place. She pressed her palm to my sternum like she was checking a gauge she knew by heart. "Your water has secrets," she said, not looking at me but at the ladder where the plankton gathered and made apostles of moths. "It dreams," I said. "I give it rules until it naps." My hand found the side of her throat, hello, not a claim. The bones under my mouth told me she'd slept last night with her hair pinned and her second-best earrings on. "We should have it," she said. "The conversation," I answered because nomming a thing can sometimes shrink it. "Open," she put the word between us like a glass. "Not chaos, not cruelty. No one from your dock, no one who signs my checks. We say it before, not after. Protection always. We keep each other first. Our bed is a border. This dock," the sound of the word was a decision, "is a sanctuary." I made a bad joke about being sacristan of spliced lines, and her mouth retired me from the pulpit with a touch. We signed the pact with skin. For a month we didn't tear it. The monofilament lay curled on the boards, a small dead tide. Under UV, 3 faint crescents grinned where the human eagerness would be if you had to map it. Under the lip of the dock box, sleeping near the spare fenders, an earbud tip pretended not to have a history. Mara disciplines her hair with matte pins that never attend a party. This was the brightness of someone who does. His name came wrapped in sponsor logos and the kind of inevitability cameras drag with them. Luca Vale, yacht influencer, host of Wake Lines, requests after-hours ambience for a segment on the romance of marinas. He had the handshake of a man who mistakes access for ownership. He wore white sneakers that pronounced creative on our wood. "Your tide is sexy," he said, pleased with his own mouth, as if the moon worked for him. His eyes measured the angle from gate to boat, camera to cabin, like a man who reads maps only to feel taller. At home, the kettle sang. Our kitchen table had the clean grammar of a cutting board. Mara spread her fingers like a rig, as if she could anchor something by making it symmetrical. "I used the word," she said. She didn't shrink. "I didn't bring that into your walls. I won't again here." "What time?" I asked stupidly, the man of logs and tide charts trying to launder a feeling with numbers. "It isn't the hour that washes it," she said, and I loved her for being right and disliked her for making me keep holding it. We lasted 3 weeks like citizens of a thin country with very polite borders. Mara used the word before when she needed it. I put the bottle of light back with the things that make children behave. Luca floated in and out with a videographer who had a better conscience than he did. The harbor breathed. Our rules held. The gulls learned the new schedule. Thursday remembers what you owe. Fob engage, 5S the gate bent time. In the staff kitchen, a sink and a microwave committed to mediocrity, a flute dried with a peppermint ring fine as a lie. On a camera angle I almost never use, a silhouette paused to tie a shoe in the way of someone who wants posterity. I did not call security to stage a sermon. I clicked through cameras and counted dock lights, that holy rosary. I felt my anger come up from my stomach like bad brandy, and I talked to it like a dog I didn't choose. "Sit. Stay. We're working." We separated in the good way because we had stored some kindness for a use like this. Mara took a 1-bedroom over a bakery where the morning flour makes weather. She stole the kettle like a fair trade for hope. I kept my chipped mug, my ring of keys with their reliable arguments, and the way the docks sound at 3. "Hate me clean," she said. If you can't, file me under something you almost never need. I alphabetize, I said, and sometimes that's a benediction. Work stitched me with line and tide. A trawler came limping in with a fouled prop. I talked the captain down off the bad idea of heroism and up onto the travel lift with a dignity nobody had to pretend. A kid working the fuel dock confused gallons and smiles. I taught him the difference without giving him a reason to lie next time. A couple fought in whispers on B12. I walked by with a flashlight and a friendly cough and gave them a story that didn't end in the water. She arrived with a Pelican case, a smell of clean diesel, and a pencil stabbed through a bun. Cass was a marine electrician from a vendor our insurer treats like a priest, rarely seen until the day you want absolution. On her left middle finger, a small pale scar curved like a comma where a breaker panel once tried to keep her. She pressed her ear to a stubborn inverter and drummed the back of her fingernail on the panel until it told the truth about being tired. Ease, not torque, she told the screw. Respect, I said, angling my flashlight without being asked. Our fingers grazed when the driver changed hands. The electricity found a home. Our first kiss happened in the engine room of a 43-foot trawler where the world sounds like a well-fed heartbeat. We had killed shore power for testing, honest alibi, and left a work light basking on the stringer. Cass put her palm on my sternum like a woman who knows exactly what heat means and where it should be. I set my mouth under her ear, the place where a word negotiates with breath, and the boat stayed upright while we tilted. She kept her eyes open, not a dare, a gratitude. My hand found the side of her throat. Hello, not proof. We stopped before the battery monitor could interpret us and log an anomaly. We laughed like people who have counted parts and decided not to count this. With Cass, precision put on warmth like a jacket cut right. She likes when my thumb rests on the pulse inside her wrist. She likes my refusal to hurry even when the world runs like a current past the piling. She will step astride my lap in the tiny glass office above the dock, blind down, radio low, water marking time, and draw with a fingernail on my forearm the path from shore power to main breaker to charger, the route of light into the dark. We made rules the marina could bless. Not in members' cabins, not in the locked locker rooms, not where a camera can remember better than we do. Yes, in the tool cage with its warm smell of rope. Yes, on the empty paddleboard dock after two. Yes, on the bow under a fog that agrees to be touched. If you came for revenge in a captain's hat, I'm not your tide. I could have printed the fob logs, highlighted the peppermint rings, brought the night's truth to a manager who loves a memo. I could have whispered to a gossip columnist that a man with a lens had mistaken our dock for a mirror. I could have taught Luca Vale the difference between a loud and welcome. But a marina is a sanctuary for other people's wakefulness. The old man who comes at dawn to sit on his stern and talk to his wife needs the water to keep its bargain. The kid who swears the moon is bigger in a dock porthole needs me to keep some secrets boring. Cass prefers me smelling like patience and clean metal, not victory. Mara and I learned to speak without turning nouns into weapons. She kept the contract to stage our lanterns and linen gala because she's good at beautiful lies that pay for true things like pilings. Sometimes she texts me a picture of her basil pretending it's a tree. I send back a frozen frame. The marina at 4:09, dock lights like a string of quiet thoughts, a heron owning the world. Proud of you, she wrote the night I handled a near collision in the channel with a VHF voice that never raised itself. I let the words land. They had no teeth. Luca still comes when sponsors need an audience to kiss the idea of water. We passed on the service dock by the ice machine. He lifted 2 fingers in a salute nobody in uniform taught him. You must love being king of shiny secrets, he said. "It's not a throne," I said. "It's a ledger." He smiled the smile of a man who mistakes composure for surrender, and let the gate close itself behind him like it was glad to see him go. Nights went back to being honest. A woman came down at 3 to cry on her deck where the air is allowed to hold a body without fixing it. I made an extra round and didn't break her privacy. A livey aboard forgot to coil his shore power with respect and learned, kindly, the heat of a mistake. I practiced the sentence that saves a life without humiliating a person. Two gulls fought over a stale churro like lawyers. The harbor decided who won. Sometimes I wake in the little bunk in the dock office at a time the clock refuses to say out loud. If Cass's shin lies heavy across my thigh like a comma placed exactly where a sentence needs breath, I set my hand along her throat and wait for the small lift that means yes. The difference between an ending and a finish has a temperature. My palm reads it better than my mouth could. Months after the bottle of developer returned to the cabinet among useful lies, the club hosted lights on the water. I wore black because it forgives string lights. Mara stood under a tamed rig, hair shorter in a way that looks like a decision. "Is she gentle?" she asked without saying Cass, because we learned how to offer names without throwing them. "She's exact," I said. My religion's word for good, tenderness with a manual. "Be kind," she said, "not a blessing, an instruction." We clinked water because water is what you drink when you need your hands steady and your head honest. On the outer dock, donors let the lanterns flatter their reflections. Near the fuel pump, Luca told a circle that boats are metaphors. They tipped him with attention he'd already budgeted. Let him keep it. I had a breaker to pat like a dog and a gate to lock and a woman who would meet me by the ladder and test my chest with a palm like a professional who trusts her meters. Marinas don't do morals. They do tides and clearances and 1,000 small rituals that keep strangers from breaking each other. To the kid I'm training who will come into my office at some savage hour with eyes too bright and ask what to do with the part of the job that won't go in a manual, I'll say what I say to myself when the water wants to loan me a stage. Log it, breathe, decide. Keep the sanctuary sacred. Don't turn the dock into a pulpit. Keep evidence if you must. Refuse the robe. Remember the widow who comes at dawn to sit on her stern and touch a name with her mouth. She will not wait for you to forgive anyone before she needs the tide to behave. Before sunrise, I take my last round like a song you learn with your feet. I run my palm down a weathered piling as if it were the back of an old dog that forgives slowness. "All green," I tell the radio, which is another way of saying it to my own chest. The small lights give me their small truths. I silence the places in the right order. I turn a key. The whole profession folded into one serious click and walk the planks toward the outer dock. Sometimes Cass is already there, hair stabbed through with that pencil, smelling like rain you never actually see and the clean ghost of diesel. She places her palm on my sternum like a woman who knows where the heat should be. I put my mouth under her ear where breath is born. I keep the only oath I took without paperwork. Sanctuaries are built, not found. Love is a maintenance log. I won't use this harbor to stage my revenge. If the gate coughs again at 0108, I will see it. I will choose a drawer, light, or patience. Lately I open, look, close, and choose patience. It looks good on water. It keeps me upright. And when the eastern sky turns the color of a peeled peach and the first fisherman kicks his starter with a curse that's a prayer, I go back down the dock with salt on my tongue, Cass's hand in mine, and the certainty that tonight I carried the truth at the right speed.